Thank you very much. My name is Ken Mijungo. I work for NTV Kenya. I have a couple of questions, but because of the interest of time, I will try and condense it. Um, the interest in Kenya is about the AU Chair Commission. We have an election coming up in January. We wish to know the stand of Rwanda in this, and if you are strongly behind Kenya and not the other four candidates. And secondly, my other question, Mr. President, is there's a lot of anti-West rhetoric, and we're just wondering your position in this. And what is the future of Africa, owing to the fact that a lot of African countries are currently showing disinterest in the Hague and the ICC? Thank you very much.
For the candidature of the African Union, I won't say much on that. There are other people who can say it on behalf of Rwanda better than myself. For one simple reason, I was given responsibility, a task by the African Union. And following that, I put up a team to try and work on the possible reform of the African Union. From we built on what had already been done on the question of financing for the African Union activities. Then we had to propose the structures and how they work or other things that could improve the working or the objectives being achieved of the African Union. So while I'm responsible for this task, I don't want to start talking about the candidates I want to go through and become the heads of. I judge that it kind of creates some kind of conflict at that level of the responsibility I hold. But I'm sure Rwanda will be making its own pronouncements through other channels when time comes, because that doesn't mean we have no preferred candidate as a matter of right for Rwanda to make that choice. But for now, I hold my back my statement on that. The second question, you talked about anti-West rhetoric. Coming from where? You mean generally across the world, or?
Including our president just the other day.
Withdrawing from
the ICC and the Rome Statute, yes. And yes.
Oh, but then you're already saying or implying that actually ICC is Western. And if so, that is even the reason actually there should be that kind of thing, because ICC was supposed to be for all of us. But if people are to equate people's views about ICC with being anti-Western, I think that is the problem. Why or since when did the ICC represent Western interests? It should be ICC, as I understand it. We are not signatory to the ICC ourselves, Rwanda is not, and for the reasons we have explained since the creation of ICC or even before. So ICC was supposed to provide international justice. In fact, that's where the problem is. when it is international justice, and then it ends up being some in the international community being the ones to use ICC to give justice to others or to hold others accountable, the question arises that one would be saying, how about this side? When they commit crimes, or when they have committed crimes, and there are so many that have been committed against Africans throughout the history. That's a long debate. We can talk about that another time. So why doesn't it apply to them? So, and that is one of the reasons Rwanda did not become signatory to ICC, because we are seeing this was not actual justice. It was something else. It was politics at the highest level, disguised as justice, international justice. So we can give as many examples as you want, and we can have as many arguments as we want, but I think maybe that was not the intention of behind your question, or nor do we have the time to go into that, because I'm sure you have views, we have views, everybody has views here. But for now, that is the main problem. And why, if so many things are said about us, about Africa, about Rwanda, about when Rwanda or when Africa says something or points something that is not correct about the West, then there is a backlash. It's like we are not supposed to talk about anything that puts the West in a bad light. So really, I don't think we should encourage or have a world that is set up like this. Otherwise, maybe you have not learned lessons, or it's injustice as usual. And should we accept that? When we know, we are not stupid people, we are not people who don't see, who don't feel, who don't even feel we have a right. Can imagine even where if you express your as a matter of your right, if you express something, then that is to be used against you. And yet in a world that says we should be free, we should all be free, we should encourage freedom of expression, we should, so on one hand there are lessons that we should all be free, we should be independent, we should freely express ourselves, and then on the other hand, if you freely say something and it doesn't portray some powerful people in a good light, then you've got to pay for it. So what is the contradiction about? There's too much of it. So I don't think I would subscribe to a situation where there is anti-this or anti-that. It's not, I for one would not have a reason to be anti-West or anti-East or anti-anybody. In fact, later on we have a situation where we are anti-self. Sometimes you find people are even doing things that are not in their own interests. It means you are against yourself. Maybe you are serving somebody else's interests, but against yourself. So we have even had these situations. So there is a lot to talk about. There is a lot to fight for. But naturally, the world is divided in so many parts, different ways of life, ideologies, different kinds of thinking. So we will naturally have some misunderstandings, or people will also agree on many things. And unfortunately, Africa has been at the receiving end all the time, and I think mostly part of it is self-inflicted. In fact, sometimes we really are responsible for our own problems. But maybe let me stop here, not take too long.
Let's take a question from the other side of the room. Let's have Collins from TNT.
Thank you very much, sir. Sure. My name is Collins Mwai. I write for the New Times Daily. Sir, yesterday in the State of the Nation address, you talked of the need to have more conversation on the distinctive meaning of patriotism as the country goes into the election year. Sir, from where you stand, what is this distinctive meaning of patriotism, and what is at stake if it's not well addressed or if it's not well talked about? Thank you.
It's not just yesterday that I started talking about patriotism. We have probably talked about it for decades. Patriotism means identifying yourself with the interests of your country, of your society, and standing up for those values and interests that any nation may be identified with. And that can be expanded to cover beyond borders from a country. You have also heard of something called Pan-Africanism. It feeds into that. There's a common interest, a common higher interest that people identify with. And once you have that well defined, then it helps in terms of achieving many aspirations. Even achieving results for policies, programs put forward by any people, any country. So it isn't that really, maybe if you have followed the last, let me say even 10 years, I can say 20-something, but we have been identified with such speeches. Sometimes we repeat it for what it is worth, and reminding people what this means in terms of development, in terms of own dignity, in terms of the challenges we face. Well, that reminds me, somebody in the audience earlier who said, I think he was following Voice of America saying something about the meeting, linking it with elections. I think you mentioned something about elections yourself, or? Yeah, like the national dialogue was about the coming elections. I mean, I heard it on somebody was referring to the VOA, but from that, first of all, even if it were to be, I just ask VOA or anybody says, so what? have no, it actually wasn't. Umushyikirano, we have Umushyikirano every year, as you know. So if one would want to tie it to what is coming next year, it's no big deal for me. That people would be thinking like that. I really have no problem. I can't tell people what to think or what to think of, what to think about us. So there's no problem. But patriotism is just, well, even thinking about elections really needs patriotism, because you are worried about what you will have during those elections, whether it is good for the country or something else. So. But patriotism is about that, in my view. That's the understanding.
Okay, let's have a question from this side. Jim's report.
Thank you so much. My name is Gaius Mohamed from Chimp Reports in Uganda.
Oh, so it is based in Uganda. I always say something like that on Twitter.
Thank you so much for
Chimp
reading Chimp
Reports,
Reports.
Okay. Do you get some reports from chimps also out there in the field?
No, it's just an Your Excellency.
Oh, okay. But you have a way you communicate with them as well.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
My question, what's your view on the pace of the Northern Corridor infrastructure projects? For example, leaders were supposed to meet in Kenya 6 months ago. Nothing is happening. Are you satisfied that things are moving well? Lastly, the facilitator of the Burundi peace talks, Mr. Mkapa, recently said that all countries hosting opposition figures who fled from Burundi should be sent back. And we understand some of them are here. Your Excellency, will you send them back? Thank you so much.
On the Northern Corridor side, it's a good thing. We have these meetings, we have these projects in mind. They help connect countries, they help economies, they definitely boost and also support the investments being made either by people in the region or out of the region. So there have been discussions, there have been good results in some areas as to what progress we make. You know, with ambition, people want things to move as fast as they can. Maybe we haven't moved as fast as we should or can. So in which case we need to do a little more in some areas, not just meetings, but what we discuss in meetings that come to certain good conclusions. So for not having had meetings, there will always be good reasons when people are not ready, because there are other things that have also to be done. But a delay of meetings or decisions, if they have good reasons, then you try and do better or catch up next time. So I think there is nothing very dramatic about these delays. I know we at some point have the meetings and re-examine what needs to be done. But even now, or between the last meeting and one we are to have in the future, there have been other meetings at different levels, technicians meeting, and you know. So by the time we meet, I think we will have some of the ground covered that was needed to be covered. So really not a big problem. Now on Burundi and former President Mkapa, who has responsibility to help the Burundi process. I heard what you said, and I heard it said the way it was. I would have preferred that maybe some of the briefing take place in the normal setup where we've had East African community meetings of heads of state or other levels that have handled this. But it's not a big problem. Maybe there was a good reason for doing it that way, but normally if this had come up in a way of briefing the leaders as to what progress or has been made or lack of it, certainly that is my preference. It would have been better. Now about, because why I'm saying this, it would have required some discussion. When you have such statement which you said, people being sent back to countries they fled, I think there are different things to look at. You look at facts, you look at circumstances, you look at different things. So which does this also mean we would have to tell the between 80 and 90,000 refugees who fled their country to one morning wake up and tell them to pack up and go back to Burundi because everything is all right in Burundi? And some, the others who are not, who seemingly are not put in that category to which they belong. They are refugees, but they are said to be doing different things other than what normally would expect of refugees. So maybe we would bring all of them together, because even before they are accused of anything, they've been part of this group of refugees, that by that definition they fled their country. We would be very happy, by the way, to return these people, to have them go back, if only at the same time we are not going to be accused of other things. So I think more clarity has to be shed on this, so to know what we can do together as a region in facilitating a solution to the problems in Burundi. These kinds of statements don't necessarily shed that clarity that one would need to make certain decisions. Otherwise, it is very simple to make people pack and go back where they came from. It's simple. As an act in itself, rounding up people and pushing them across the border is a simple thing, but the implication of it is far-reaching and much, much bigger than the effort of doing it. So that's why I think I don't think it was meant for painting a picture that the problems of Burundi or people who fled Burundi, taking them back, is that simple. I don't think that was the intention. Therefore, there are a few other things to be talked about before anything happens. But what we stand ready for as Rwanda is to contribute to Burundi's resolution of the problems there. Just contribute. We can make a positive contribution, or any other neighbor where we are concerned, we are ready to make our own contribution, positive contribution.
Take a pic from the other side, Edmund.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. My name is Edmund Kajiri. I work for the East African newspaper. Thank you for this opportunity. Mr. President, I wanted to know, still on the issue of Burundi, what do you think is the way forward, considering that there is a lot at stake. We have, the relations between the two countries. We have refugees. What do you think is the way forward to resolve the issue in Burundi? Also, a quick one, Mr. President. Many people talked about next year, August 4th. I wanted to know, looking back 6 or so years, would you say you have delivered on your 2010 manifesto? Thank you very much, sir.
For Burundi, what needs to be done is maybe what is being done. When there are people facilitating talks or other efforts to look for a solution from among many groups of Burundi, I think that's a way forward. That's very important. Other details, they are really not up to me to spell them out. It's the facilitators, it's the Burundi themselves, then it's the region when we sit to examine what is being put to us as the choices of Burundi, or what the facilitators have found to be possible courses of action. Then otherwise I have no remedy for other people's problems. If you have anything you want to ask me about the way forward here on any issue, I tell you. But for other people's problems, I'm not able to say. Even if I had it in mind, I want to treat it as first and foremost not my primary responsibility. It comes to another level where I can contribute, but it's not my primary responsibility. For up to August next year, looking where we are coming from and what we think we have done, I think you should tell me. I've concentrated so much on doing some of the things. I think it would be fair to be told by those others who experience what is happening in the country to be the ones to tell us. Sometimes when you're playing music, I think it's the dancer, those who are dancing, to tell you how good the music is. If you are a player, if you are the musician, to start telling people how good the music is, I think you would be making a mistake. So I wait for it people on the floor to tell me how the music was, good or bad, then we can move from there.
I will take another question from Dan from TV10. Sorry.
Thank you,
Yes, Dan,
Mr.
sorry,
President.
Kigali Today.
My name is Dan Ngawonziza. I work for Kigali Today and Kate Press. Mr. President, allow me to take you back to Vision 2020. The other weekend during RPF
Back
gathering.
or forward, because 2020 is still ahead.
Okay. There is a figure that was released which shows that a lot has not been achieved yet in as far as Vision 2020 is concerned. What do you think went wrong, Mr. President?
No, tell me what yourself. I mean, if you make the question precise, then I'm helped. Which one are you referring to? Because or maybe you need to rephrase the question or give me some direction.
Mr. President,
I want us to understand each other better.
if you look at the figure that was released, Mr. President, it shows that
Figure about what?
Vision 2020 targets, some that were achieved and those that are not being achieved yet.
Yes, those that haven't been achieved, we still have how many years to 2020? Maybe 3.
But those that have not been achieved are so many compared to the 6.9, for instance.
Like which one? In which area?
Like in agriculture sector, education sector, and ICT.
Agriculture, which has been growing at around 6%, I think that's not a bad thing. We had, of course, a bad start. Agriculture started growing not so long ago. I mean, positive growth. So we are doing our best to make sure, for example, in terms of high yield crops, productivity, in terms of irrigation, different inputs that can help agriculture, the investments are being made. Technology that can be used. Irrigation refers to not being solely dependent on the good weather we have and take for granted. So I think progress is being made, as you realize or said. But for example, in the area of agriculture, we had a late start in terms of doing that. All our history has registered negative growth in agriculture until not so long ago. So that means we are turning the corner, and I think we can hope to accelerate that and have more people involved, more investments. Value addition, and in terms of agribusiness and processing. I think there's indeed a lot we have to do and can do. So I think the plans are there to steer the ship in the right direction. We've already tested what is possible, and we want to move along those, whether it is in education or infrastructure. We keep seeing good progress. So maybe when we are at 2020, we may find we have covered a lot of ground, if not 100%. Maybe certainly it looks like it can't be 100%, but if we are at a good percentage, maybe 80, 85, I think that's healthy. Then we can pick the lessons learned and apply them as we move forward. Consolidate the good gains we have made, I think we can continue on that path.
Mr. President, with your permission, maybe we can take about 3 more questions, sir. Okay, we'll go that side. Let's have a question from Umuseke.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Veniste Kamanzi, nandikira umuseke.com. Urebye imibereho y'abanyarwanda igenda ihinduka, ndetse na raporo zirabigaragaza ko imibereho y'abanyarwanda ihinduka, ariko iyo tugiye hirya no hino mu byaro bavuga ko kubona amafaranga bigoye, ko imibereho irushaho kugenda ihenda, bitavuze ko amafaranga batayabona, barayabona, ariko bakavuga ko nayo bakozeho ahita baca mu myanya y'intoki kubera ko wenda ibiciro bihenze cyangwa agaciro k'amafaranga uko gahagaze uyu munsi. None nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nkaba nibaza ko dusoje gahunda y'imyaka 7 ya guverinoma, ndetse na DPRS ya kabiri iri hafi, na SDGs twazinjiyemo, mwaha icyizere ki abaturage ko mu minsi iri imbere cyangwa se mu myaka iri imbere bashobora kuzajya babona byibura iby'ibanze, imyambaro, ibiribwa n'ibindi by'ibanze bakenera bitabahenze nk'uko bavuga ko uyu munsi babibona bibahenze? Murakoze.
ngira ngo umuntu yahera ku biba biriho, ndibwira ko muri ibyo byose ubajije abanyarwanda ukajanisha ibyo bavuga, uzasanga umubare munini no muri ibyo bihenze, no mu bindi bibazo bivuka, no muri rusange bazakubwira ko umubare munini uzakubwira ko uko ubuzima bwabo bwari bumeze mu myaka 10 ishize, ubu ubuzima bwarushijeho kuba bwiza, nubwo haba hakiriho ibyo bibazo cyangwa se n'ibindi bigenda bivuka. Ndavuga muri rusange rero niko bimeze, ubwabyo bitanga icyizere. No kuvuga ngo niba umuturage ashobora kukubwira ati uko nari meze mu myaka 10 ishize hari ikiyongereyeho, ngira ngo kandi bamwe babyivugiye no mu mushyikirano hari ababivugaga, akakubwira ko nta kintu yari afite, basigaye atunze inka cyangwa se yubatse urugo cyangwa afite umurima areza akagurisha imyaka ku isoko akagira icyo avanamo. Hari benshi bahoze batubwira kuva ejo n'uyu munsi ko batigeze bagera aho bajya hanze y'iki gihugu kubera ko ntacyo bari bafite gukorayo, ariko basigaye bagenda ku isi hose. Ntabwo nibwira ko ari umuntu umwe gusa wabivuze kuriya ngo ni umwe gusa, ahubwo haba harimo n'abandi bameze nka we muri ibyo. Ariko nanone umuntu agarutse ku kibazo wavugaga, ari uburyo amikoro, hari amafaranga yaguzwa mu banka ahenze, mbere nta nubwo yari ariho ayo mafaranga, ntiyari ahenze, ntiyari ariho. Ubu ni ngo byari ariho, arahenze, ariko hari abayakoresha, nubwo abahenda hari abayafiteho uburyo bayakoresha. Ikiba gisigaye gukorwa rero ni ugushakisha uburyo noneho icya mbere umubare wakwiyongera wabo abashobora kubona amafaranga yo gukoresha. Icya kabiri ibyo byajyana no kugabanya uko amafaranga yaba ahenda ku nguzanyo. Ariko noneho n'icya gatatu no kurema ibikorwa cyangwa gushakisha ibikorwa haba mu gihugu haba mu karere dutuyemo, uko ayo mafaranga yakoreshwa bifitiye abayafite akamaro. Ubwo ni amasoko, ubuhahirane n'ibindi. Ndibwira rero ko ugiye ureba sectors zose usanga zose zitera imbere, ariko zimwe zitera imbere ku ntambwe, ku muvuduko wihuse kurusha izindi. Icyo tuba dushaka rero no kugira ngo zose zigende ku ntambwe yihuse kandi ku buryo bigera ku banyarwanda benshi. Nicyo cyifuzo. Ari ibyo twavugaga iby'ubuhinzi n'ubworozi, ari abikorera, ari abari mu mirimo iyo ari yo yose bashobora guhanga imirimo, bashobora gukora ibintu byinshi bitandukanye. Dushaka uburyo bwabafasha, bwabaha amikoro yo gukora byinshi birenze kandi byagera kuri benshi kurusha abo bigeraho.
We'll take a question from here. Let's have Albert.
Albert Rudatsimburga from Contact. Sir, I have, as an observer, a personal feeling that ESC is slowing down, although it could be, of course, for the technical reasons. But isn't it more than that in general, in the integration? And that brings me to another question that could be current affairs. Actually, it's about the archives of the ICTR. Is definitely Rwanda being denied a copy of those archives or access to it, and that it will be stored somewhere nearby in Tanzania, in Arusha?
On the ESC side, I think we have an East African community. Integration has been in good health. It doesn't move as fast as we want. I'm sure all East Africans would wish it to go faster than it is going. Every time we meet, we identify, we try to find reasons that lead to what you as an East African might be seeing as slow pace. So I think it is there. We have to make sure we keep grappling with the problems associated with continued movement forward and move the integration as fast as we can do that. So it's a general thing that we need to find specific answers for going forward together in the region. So that's it. For the archives, I think there are still discussions maybe going on. Our ambassador to the UN has been at it with those responsible, raising the questions that need to be raised. But I would not be surprised if there are efforts to fail our wish to have the archives here or being copied the archives as we should. It has been something going for many years, and we know there are people, there are countries actually, specifically who never wished to see Rwanda host the archives. It's as of old a political problem. Those who are linked with the genocide, one way or another, have interest in determining where the archives are hosted. I think earlier in this meeting we had earlier in the Umushyikirano that was going on, you had presentations telling you how even those who were tried in Arusha in a very dubious way being released. It's not justice, it's politics again as to where these are complex issues that we keep trying to deal with as well and as much as we can.
I think we'll take, so if you don't mind, two last questions from the ladies in the front. One from Stephanie, and then we'll come to this lady, and then we can close.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. So you question, maybe can you clarify about you to talk about early release of ICTR? I guess you want to talk about Ferdinand Naimana and Emmanuel Rukondo. Just maybe if you can clarify a bit your reaction. And according to the local press, another topic, during the political bureau of RPF, you said that the opponent, Thomas Naimana, should have been allowed to enter to Rwanda. Is that true? And do you think that this person has any chance to run against you for the presidency? Thank you.
So maybe let me start with the second question. First, I don't decide who runs against me. There are rules and laws that are there to be followed. So I think the rules and the laws that are there will allow anybody, except foreigners, of course. Those ones don't participate in our elections, though they have a lot to say about our elections, but they don't participate. So I think for that one, I won't even take much time. Anybody, including the one you mentioned, I think will follow the rules that are there. They will run, whether against me or even against somebody else. So if they want to run, they will run. It doesn't matter whether it is against me or against other people. I guess you meant running for the presidency, which is not the same as running against me. Then the other Minister of Justice, I think, explained earlier, and some other people talked about the release of people who were already actually prosecuted, sentenced, and convicted. I think it was properly explained. Normally with such a people, say one who has been sentenced to life imprisonment or so many years, means they have been found guilty. For them to be released without finishing their sentence, I think Dr. Bizimana told us about 3 things that are followed, actually written, and these are the rules, what they consider, including consulting Rwanda, where they come from. But the information that we have is that these people are being released without actually the 3 things being followed. Possibly, remotely, if there was anything followed, it is 1, but even that is not explained how it got to be applied. If they're talking about people having repented on top of good conduct and so on and so forth, having disassociated with themselves with the crime they committed in some way, that is one of the considerations. But even then, if we were to say this is what was applied, I think we were told by the experts and people who followed closely that this is not even clear. So what does this mean? It means, therefore, that this whole thing adds up to being, I said earlier, dubious. It's absolutely dubious. And in fact, it becomes even more dubious when it is done where it is done, by the people who are doing it. who, as you know, I'm sure you know, maybe you may not believe, but you know, that where these people are being released, there is a strong link with the crime itself. These people were tried and imprisoned for. So I'm not stating my own facts. I'm talking about the general facts. So I'm not feeding anybody with just general facts. I'm talking about the real facts, which you can verify and which anyway have originated from credible sources and different ones that I have nothing to do with. So I think that is maybe the additional clarification you want me to add.
Thank you, Mr. President, for your time. I'm Sophie Kinoti. I work for Citizen. Mine is on the issue of SGR. Having Kenya as your biggest trading partner, kindly clarify to us or even explain why you reconsidered Tanzania to Kenya. Thank you.
So I don't get to the question.
It's on the SGR, Standard Gauge Railway.
Okay.
Yes. Having Kenya as your biggest trading partner, why did you reconsider Tanzania to Kenya?
No, I actually want both. I've been looking for both. I want a railway to come from Dar es Salaam to Isaka to wherever else, but specifically to Kigali or to Rwanda. Wherever else the branches to well and good, but I want Dar es Salaam all the way. Some facts tend to dictate that maybe the route would be Dar es Salaam, Isaka, say to Kigali or any other point in Rwanda. That is absolutely important for me, or for Rwandans, and for what the railway would serve. And we have also for a long time pursued the possibility of Mombasa, Kisumu, all the way through Uganda up to here. The more railway connections we have, in fact, if it were possible, the better. So we are not yet in the business of preferring one to the other, because we have none anyway. We don't have any working for us, and it seems realizing any of the possibilities is as difficult as realizing the other. So we are a country in this kind of difficulty that fulfilling our wish does not always depend on us. It depends on us, maybe a small fraction. We find that others have to have a say and determine whether we get our wish. So that's the difficulty of being landlocked. So being landlocked dictates that we also think about doing other things that don't have to be carried on rails, because the railway is not there. But we find we can't have, at least not yet, have enough to satisfy our development demands that do not move on rails. But the effort is still going on. We talk to the Tanzanians, the Central Corridor, we talk to Kenya and Uganda, that's the Northern Corridor. We keep talking and we keep pushing, and it's work in progress. So there is no issue for us of saying we are pursuing this against the other, or actually we want both. Yes.
President, if it's all right with you, we can just take the last question.
Sure.
Let's have this colleague here.
Thank you, Mr. President.
This is lopsided on the side of women, so we shall have another man after this one, and then be thinking about who to. It's just a bonus for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Buhle Moyo from Zimbabwe. I actually follow you on Twitter. I don't actually work for any particular organization now. I'm more active on social media, and I have a blog. So for me, my question is not so much on hard news, but from the stories I've heard about Rwanda and looking at your history and where you are now, and having listened to you in the past 2 days, the three words that come to mind when I think of Rwanda are hope, faith, and courage. So I'd just like to know if those are the words that you'd identify with. Can you relate those words to your situation? And for me, I think the most important is courage, because I think looking at your history and the pain that you went through and the process that you're taking, I think it takes a lot of courage to actually acknowledge your pain and try and deal with it. So I'd just like to know if you'd also sort of relate with that.
Well, absolutely. Thank you for coining some words and ideas for me to associate with. And I fully subscribe to that. So, I think we need those three you said, and maybe we need more, but those are very important. We need courage, we need hope, we need what else did you say? We need to have faith and confidence that we can. I think that was maybe a very good question, because it was simple but very important. So the three are absolutely things we need, and without courage you may not really do much, because there are many things, whatever you try to do, that stand in your way, and if you don't have courage to push ahead, then you may lose everything. And when you lose everything, you've lost hope. Yeah.
We'll take the last question from the front there. Let's have Lambert.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika. Nitwa Jean Lambert Gatare, nkorera Isango Star. Hari ikintu muvuze mu mwanya mu mushyikirano, aho mwibazaga impamvu kiswe imbabazi za Kiliziya Gatolika zisa nkaho ari za nyirarureshwa, mukibaza impamvu Papa asaba imbabazi ku byaha rimwe na rimwe biri aho bidafite aho bihuriye n'icyaha cya Genocide. Mubona ari ka gasuzuguro gakunze gukorerwa Abanyafurika n'Abanyarwanda by'umwihariko, cyangwa batinye gusaba imbabazi kugira ngo tutabaryoza indishyi cyangwa n'ibyombi? Murakoze.
Nibwira ko hari byombi cyangwa hari n'ibindi birenze, kuko indishyi zo hari naho bazishyura. Sinzi ko batinya indishyi kuko hari aho bazishyura. Aho hamwe uvuga bishyuye indishyi zitagira uko zingana. Ariko njye nibwira ko ibibazo byo mu Rwanda byabaye mu gihugu cyacu ntabwo ari ibibazo bihera hano iwacu ngo birangirire hano iwacu. Ni ibibazo bifite imizi kuva kera. Reka nguhe urugero rumwe n'ubwo wenda rutavuzwe. Nahoze numva abantu bashakisha ariko se amateka cyangwa bayahera ari ibintu Minisitiri wa Justice yavuze abisobanura, ariko amateka yahereye hino gato ariko byasobanutse neza. uwabanza akakwereka ukuntu niba wibuka amateka z'umuntu witwaga Perode. Perode yari musenyeri. Perode icyo gihe na colonialism abakoroni b'iki gihe hari aho wigeze wumva hari aho batanira. One was the other. Ni amateka ntabwo agenda ari ibintu mpimba, niko bimeze. Perode yari umupadiri, yari umusenyeri, ariko twari dufite n'ubukoroni bivanze. So mbere yo kugira icyo dusubiza, iyo tubanza tugashaka naho byatandukanye, niba byaratandukanye. Niyo mpamvu rero akenshi imizi y'ikibazo cyacu cy'u Rwanda, cya genocide, n'ibindi byose biragenda bigahurira kuri iryo pfundo. Niyo mpamvu ndetse bitasobanukaga, nahoze mbaza ikibazo mpereye ku byo wari ubajije yarabajije. Nabazaga ngo ahandi basabye imbabazi, n'ubundi njye mbibona nk'aho ari abantu ku giti cyabo bakoze amakosa. Ariko abo bantu ku giti cyabo, kuko nk'ahantu nko muri Amerika aho abakuru ba Gatolika bafataga abana bangiza bagira bate, ntabwo idini ryigeze ribabwira ngo abe ariko mujya mubigenza, ntabwo ryigeze rituma. Abantu babikoze, ariko iyo bamaze kubikora bifata intera y'uko bisize urwego rw'idini ibara ribi, bituma noneho abantu bavuga bati ariko ibi bintu ntabwo ari byo, bashaka n'amafaranga, bishyura abari bahutaye cyangwa ababo bahutaye barabishyura, ariko bikorwa mu izina rusange, ntibyakorwa hariya gusa. Bifata intera y'uko bigera ku buyobozi, biba muri Ireland, biba muri Australia. Iyo bigeze hano abantu bagaceceka, bavuga ngo babikoze ni ku giti cyabo, ntabwo babikora, ntawabatumye, n'abandi ntabari wabatumye. Rero nabaza ngo kuki uko wagenje ibindi atari kugenza nibi, bose ko ntawabatumye n'ubundi, kuki bigera aha? Icyo kibazo mbaza ubwabyo kirivugira, gisobanura aho bikwiriye kuba bigana muri ibyo bishoboka washakaga, ni aho ngaho bigana. Ariko rero icyaha ntabwo kijya gisaza. Icyaha cy'amateka nk'iki cyo gihoraho, niyo wakirengagiza umwe akagenda hakaza undi, kizahora kiganirwa, kibazwa. Abantu bazahora babaza batari ko gute. So twe kubaza gusa, ariko ndibwira ko rimwe hazaboneka ibisubizo wenda. No kubona n'igihe ubuyobozi bw'idini bwari mu karere hano, ntabwo mvuze ngo iyo baza kudusura, iyo baza twayaga kubishimira nk'abashyitsi, ariko no kugira icyo umuntu avuga kandi azi ko kibasiga izina ribi, nibwira ko bifite inkomoko muri aya mateka yose. Hari wabyita ibyo bibiri, wabyita n'ibindi biba bifite imizi umuntu atareba aho iganisha.
Thank you, Mr. President. In conclusion, sir, I would just like to, on behalf of the members of the press here.
Someone here keeps us. Can you try?
The young man?
You better ask a good question, otherwise it's not good. Then I really...
Yeah, thank you
very much, Mr. President. It depends maybe on what is good or bad. But mine is about economy. Rwanda's economy, according to what you said,
is good.
Yeah, thanks. You said you are planning to stop receiving donor money as your budgeting, in your budgeting. Is it something that has been concluded? Do you have a deadline?
No, it's an ultimate aim. It's what is driving us. We can't set a date on these things. It would not be proper. Again, maybe it is one of those things I said, when you are saying something, you better be careful how you say it. You don't want to send the wrong message, opposite of what you wanted to say. I think my own interpretation, the way I would put it, and I would wish people to understand it, is that we are doing our best to grow our economy, to build on different kinds of investments, to make sure that we are standing on a solid ground where you don't have this situation where when somebody is not happy with you for completely unrelated things, they will switch on, they will switch off, so people living on life support are not living in actual fact. So we want to live, we want to breathe our own air by our own accord, and that's the ultimate goal. But there are things that, I said it earlier, there are things that don't depend on people entirely. There are things that we can say we are sure it depends on us, what we do, what we don't do will affect us one way or the other, but these are things we are in charge of. But there are other things you may not be in full control of. If you are in the region, if the whole, there are some externalities that will happen irrespective of what we hope for or wish, and therefore cannot dictate that. So these are the ones that mainly will affect the pace. So it wouldn't be easy to say on this date, but I think by the 2050 vision, people said, and then broke it down into, they were giving broad lines of, by this, maybe after 15 years, we hope to have achieved this. Then another 15, we think we shall have achieved this. I think that is the way to look at it. People should not walk out of the room saying, they said they want it and you think it is the next day. Because we can even, the changing world has been changing many ways of doing things. In different partnerships we have had, there are signs that people are saying, you know what, why do we use to dish out aid to people, go invest in education, go invest in this? Some people are realigning it in a certain way that they are saying, let's do more trade than us giving you money directly and say, go and do this. Or if it is money given to you directly, it is to build the capacity so that you can trade better and therefore realize bigger volumes of the trade you're having. So this is a different way of looking at things. Initially, they would just say, what do you need for education? This much. Or even if people received it and put it into something else, which has nothing to do with really what sometimes used to happen in the old days in different places, But now people are saying, no, if we increase the trade, if we increase the capacity to trade and invested in this with our partners, actually there is more money going to countries than the money we are giving them for just aid for what it has been. So I think this is, so let's not get lost with when, which date, what hour or something. You know, I think it's this pathway that needs to be understood better.
Thank you, Mr. President.
So after all, it was a good question.
Thank you, sir. As we conclude, the members of the press have asked me to extend to you and your family, sir, their best wishes for a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year 2017.
The same to all of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.